Welcome back to Amplified. I'm Lavene McGee in for Aisha Mills. In many ways, the COVID crisis has illuminated the disdain that our society has for poor people and those in need of support. Millions have been struck by the virus, but those with low wages and little wealth have been, of course, hit the hardest. Yet the federal relief efforts have prioritized aid to big businesses and corporate actors rather than average workers, which begs the question, why don't we think that poor people are truly deserving of relief? Joining me now to break it all down is Colorado State Representative Leslie Herod. Leslie, welcome to Amplified.
Thanks so thanks so much for having me.
Glad to have you. I'll put it right out there. Why does government have a bigger appetite for propping up large corporations that are so-called too big to fail than actually supporting Americans in need?
Yeah. Well, this is an age-long issue, I believe, with our country, and it's because the people who have been put in power to make laws and decisions for us as a nation have been those who have the ability to, who have the money to, have the power, who are landowners. And those biases have gone into our policies, gone into our laws, and they disproportionately harm those who are low income, those who are poor, and people of color. And we're seeing that play out today.
Well, when has trickle down ever worked? We hear the term all the time. And with no evidence of it, why do the politics of both parties, Democrats, they're also, being held accountable here. Why does it still skew towards supporting the wealthy rather than the low-waged?
Well, because it's interesting, right? Because those who have that I spoke of, they're not just Democrats or Republicans. The people who are elected to rule, to lead us, have typically been wealthy of all parties. And that's something that we have to change. And that's why it's important that at the state level, we enact policies that really impact the people who need the help the most. In Colorado, we're seeing that happen. We're seeing that our recovery efforts are having a disproportionately positive impact on the middle class and the wealthy as opposed to low income. And it's time for us to put these extra dollars that are coming in from the federal recovery package to actually impact working people, working class people, poor people, and low income people, and take our bias policies off the books once and for all. We have the opportunity to do that right now because we have the funding and the money to do it. It's just a matter of, do we have the political will to get it done?
Yeah, well, let's talk about social spending because it always creates consternation on both sides of the aisle. It's like we're trained to devalue people, to dismiss human infrastructure, and to have disdain for anyone who might need support. How has this
Right.
mentality exacerbated health and wealth disparities in America, particularly in the wake now of COVID?
Well, we see it happening with COVID, and it's really has just exploded this issue. Right now, we are in a worker shortage. We are in a worker crisis. People are not going back to work because we don't have the policies in place right here in this nation to support that. Most families, a family of two parent household with a child, they have to determine whether or not one of those parents will go to work or stay home because they can't afford both, right? The cost of childcare is almost equal to people's wages right now, and that has to change. So, if we want to get people back to work, if we want to look at these income inequalities, we have to put policies in place that actually help us, like having childcare opportunities in the workplace and close to where we live and work. That's hugely important. We have to make sure that worker policies actually support the worker so that people want to go back to work. And we need to make sure that we have a healthcare system and a safety net that supports us all. And right now, it doesn't. Let me tell you about a policy I worked on in Colorado that just went into place this year, and it really underscores the bias we have here. So, in Colorado and in most states, there was a law on the books that if you got into trouble and couldn't pay a court fine or fee, so you didn't have the money to pay your fines or fees, that you actually lost your driver's license until you could pay those fines. If that's not an example of a biased policy, I don't know what is. Because those who could afford to pay could write their check and leave. Those who couldn't had to lose their car, their transportation, their way of taking their kids to school, their way of getting themselves to work. And I got to tell you, it was one of the most backwards policies we had. Because if you can't work, how do you pay your fines and fees? And so just this week on January 1, we have eliminated that law on the books in Colorado, where you'll no longer have your driver's license revoked for failure to pay fines and fees and other non driver's license related offenses. This is so important. But these types of policies are embedded in every single area of the law, and it's something that we've got to change. If you are unhoused, you are less likely to have access to social services that you need, much less education or starting a small business or really growing the wealth that you need to ensure that not only you, but your family is housed. And so we have to think about these policies. We have to walk in the shoes of the people who need our help, and we have to put them in place now. And again, we have the opportunity to do so.
I have to congratulate on you on getting rid of that whole driver's license thing. I hadn't heard about that, and we normally think about Colorado as being more progressive. So kudos to you on getting that taken care of, because of course you don't want people to lose their driver's license and not being able to sustain their life. But you know, COVID is
Right.
something that has cast a spotlight on the vulnerabilities of working people they're really being left behind in the recovery efforts. Talk to us about the worker shortage and why people have been forced to shift their lifestyle and choose not to work, and how this has exacerbated economic insecurity and stigmatized and criminalized homelessness.
Absolutely. And I got to say, it's not just about wages. People think it's just about the minimum wage and lifting that up. That is not just it. In Colorado and in Denver specifically, you could work an 18-hour, a dollar an hour job and still not be able to afford housing. Our median housing is so expensive that most folks can't afford to live in the city of Denver, much less keep their dreams of their kids living in the neighborhoods that they grew up in. And so it's more than wages. It's about how we're treating our workers, how we're valuing them in the workplace. Because I got to tell you, when people are choosing not to come back to work, and these are middle class and working class families, we have a huge problem in this country. And again, it's not just because of those stimulus dollars, like folks might have assumed. People still are not going back to work because the workplace is not working for them. We've got to change that. And I think we can look to some of our friends across the pond in Europe to see what they're doing to ensure that people are valued at work and are coming back. That's what we need to do.
Oh, I wish, I tell you, they've got great policies. But you know, the initial COVID relief funds should have targeted those hit first and worst. But the truth is, it actually went to businesses. In fact, billions were actually
Yeah.
extracted fraudulently from the PPP loan process. So why are people like Manchin so cold-hearted and more concerned with people in need gaming the system than the real fraud taking place all around us?
Well, I can't speak to Manchin's intentions or even his heart, but what I can tell you is that those policies aren't working, and the people who have defrauded the system for millions and millions of dollars, very few of them are actually facing any kind of repercussions for their actions, and so much of that money is not trickling down into their employers, into the people who really need it the most. As you said, trickle down is not working. But it's really beyond that. Our small businesses did not receive the recovery dollars either. Either they didn't have the relationships with the banks, they didn't have the employees to fill out all of that paperwork. And when they did get funding or support, it was so small, it couldn't keep their business afloat for longer than a month or two. And we know COVID has lasted much longer than that. And so our policies really do need to look at the people. It needs to start from the people first, not the businesses. What we're doing in Colorado is we're ensuring that recovery dollars are going into our communities, specifically small businesses that are owned by people of color. We're focusing on arts and the art sector. We're focusing on childcare, and we're also focusing on shovel-ready projects in communities that need the support the most. And that goes for urban areas and neighborhoods in urban areas like Five Points, which is right in my district, and rural areas that also need that support. And so we have to look at it from that perspective if we're going to lift up the entire state and, quite frankly, our entire economy. What we're doing and what we have done with these recovery dollars, it's not working well enough. Our economy is not strong enough. We have way more that we need to do, and it starts with the people first.
Do you think, though, that people understand the way it works and that these big businesses often are funneling money, whether it's dark money or through fundraisers? Do you think that the average person really realizes that some of these lawmakers, I know you said you don't want to comment on Manchin or anybody like that, but do you think that the average person realizes that big business finds a way to get money to back a certain candidate or back a certain elected official to get their needs met and not the needs of regular Americans?
Well, absolutely. I think that the people are, quite frankly, fed up with the entire system, and you can see some just aren't playing anymore. And as an elected official and a Democrat, I need people to come out and vote. But I understand why they're disillusioned with the process when you see, especially in the time of need, rich people are getting richer and poorer staying poor, or even having to move out into the streets. And so, yes, I think people see it. I think people don't care what your party affiliation is. They're seeing that we're not working for them, that government is not getting the job done. And that's something that we really need to focus on, and come together, quite frankly, as parties. It shouldn't have a D or an R behind your name if we're going to actually support the people who live in our districts and our constituents. We should all be doing that work, which means that we need to make sure our schools can open safely for our kids and those who work in those school communities. It means people are ready to go back to work and have jobs to go back to that support them both as workers and as people, and that we have a government that actually supports the people as well. And so I do think that people know what's going on. I think people understand dark money. I think that they think that dark money has permeated our entire political system, but we've got to get involved to change that.
Well, like you said, it doesn't matter whether or not you're a D or an R. We are counting on people like you. Thank you so much, Colorado State Representative Leslie Herod. Appreciate you joining us tonight here on Amplified.